Hello, Jim Williams, HurricaneCity.com, here with my 2026 landfall predictions. I've been doing this since 2003. 1 year I missed due to illness. 2 of the years I did not get any of my top 5. Last year I got lucky and one of my top 5 was impacted, and that was Nassau, Bahamas, number 4, impacted by Tropical Storm Imelda as it was heading into the Atlantic from the Caribbean. So on average, going back to 2000, I've averaged around 3 out of my top 5, around 50% of the remaining 20, and averaged 42 miles from center. Now, when I started doing this, it was based on 60 miles from center. Now it's based on 40-mile-per-hour tropical storm force winds from the National Hurricane Center in the post-analysis of each storm. And it's been averaging around 42 miles from each city in my top 5, so that's pretty good. Now, last year I predicted 18 named storms. We did not get 18 named storms. That factored into why the predictions were not very good. This year I'm expecting a pretty strong El Nino for the majority of the hurricane season. I'm expecting 12 to 14 named storms. So with that said, most of the top 20 that I'm showing you here are based on fitting into that category of being impacted during slower than normal hurricane seasons. I'll get to all the details after my top 20. Presentation, I did leave some clues in there in a few of those top 20. Now here is a map of the top 20, and notice the circle. That's where most of the top 20 are concentrated within that circle, which is composed of the western Bahamas and southeastern Florida. There's also another grouping in the Florida Panhandle, which is one of the reasons why Pensacola is number 1. There's also some up in the mid-Atlantic states and the Carolina coastline. So here are my potential tracks for the 2026 hurricane season. Not a lot different from last year's tracks. A little bit further west as they turn from the Caribbean going into the western Bahama Islands and or southeastern Florida. It's another track expected into the potential west coast of central coast of Florida, up the eastern seaboard is another potential track, and up into the Canadian Maritimes. And then this is the tricky one because generally Texas and western Louisiana get impacted early in the hurricane seasons by hurricanes. In fact, it has the earliest average hit week in the entire Atlantic basin belongs to the Texas coastline. They generally get hit between August 10th and August 18th by hurricanes. So if anything develops early, it's going to be probably in the Gulf of Mexico and head generally in the direction of Texas, Louisiana, or up into the Florida Panhandle. Now, these tracks usually don't pan out exactly. There's been a few years where I was nailing it. In fact, the opening frame shows my 2017 predictions were almost spot on with the tracks, but it's a really hard thing to get the tracks exactly right. Here is the prediction chart that I put together to come up with my top 20. And there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 criteria, as you can see on the graph. So starting on the left, we have all the cities that I've chosen, breaking it down from, it was over 80 cities to begin with, and break it down into 20, and they're listed in alphabetical order to the left. The most important column here is seasons since 1990, when there's been 12 to 14 named storms, because of course I'm predicting 12 to 14 named storms. Only one area came up with that, anything close to that, and that was Nassau, Bahamas, 14.22. So they're slightly over. So they won that particular category. Anybody that is highlighted in yellow has won each column as far as the criteria for each column. Okay, so perhaps the word win isn't really a good word to describe the rankings. It's just basically number crunching to figure out what city has the most concern going into the upcoming hurricane season. It's not that you're winning or losing, it's just the way the system works. So we talked about column one, season since 1990, 12 to 14 named storms. The next column over is based on the XRO model, which has been one of the better models the last couple of years on predicting ENSO. Whether it's going to be El Nino or La Nina or neutral, it's been one of the best, if not the best. So I went back and looked at all the years that the XRO model did well, and all the years are listed at the top of that column. And there were 5 cities that were impacted a lot during those years. That was Savannah, Georgia, Stuart, Florida, and Wilmington, North Carolina, all tied at 5. So they win that category. Next category over is 40 plus mile per hour. Is it statistically due or overdue for 40 mile per hour winds? 3 cities come to mind there. One island, Andros Island, Bimini Island, Bahamas, and Pensacola, Florida, all tied at 3 years. And then the next column over is overdue for 75 mile per hour winds. There's quite a few cities that are way overdue for a hurricane strike. But Fernandina sticks out at 33 years. They win that category. Next category is one that I put a lot of weight in, and that is trends. For example, let's take Fernandina Beach, for example. They've been impacted 2 years after a double impact 5 times. They were impacted last in 2024 twice by 40 mile per hour winds, and then 5 times in history that's happened again 2 years later. So that's a trend that needs to be watched. And there's like 7 or 8 or 9 rather other cities that have some really interesting trends. So they all tied in one way or another. And then the next column over is all El Nino years. So what I did was figure out not just who gets impacted the most in El Nino years out of the top 20, but what percentage of the El Nino years that city gets impacted. So the winner in this category is Cape Cod, Massachusetts. 35% of the time there's been an El Nino year, they've been impacted. And the criteria is 20% of the years to qualify. So all the yellow are based on 20% or greater, but the winner in that category is Cape Cod. And then the final criteria is were they picked last year and not impacted. So there's 6 cities, Andros Island, Bimini, Bahamas, Elizabeth City, North Carolina, Gulf Shores, Alabama, Morehead City, North Carolina, and Pensacola, Florida. So whoever has the most yellow on the map, again, wins, if you will, the number crunching. And there were 3 or 4 cities that had 3, but it's all based on the weight of each category. So the winner is Pensacola. You already saw the top 20. If you want details on how each city got figured out, I will have a blog available that's linked from the predictions page to show you how I came up with my top 20. So I wish everyone the best of luck this hurricane season in the Atlantic Basin. Expect it to be slow, but don't let that fool you. A lot of the slow hurricane seasons, over half of the named storms have impacted land. So have a plan ready, be prepared, pay attention to the statements from the National Hurricane Center, and we'll be tracking them all year at hurricanecity.com, and I'll post on my social media when one of my top 20 is impacted. It'll be on the predictions page as well, highlighted in yellow when they get 40 plus mile per hour winds from a named storm.
Hurricane Alley comes alive. The storms are rolling through the night. A city stands in danger sight. Nations flash in 1520, but where they land is what we fear. The path is wild, the winds are plenty, the answer's never crystal clear. Who, when, where, who will it be? The storm won't wait, it's coming free. Who, when, where, who will it see? The winds will write their destiny. The radar lights begin to scream. The waves are building.